Hello everyone. I feel like tempted to go tuk, tuk, tuk. Anyone there? Is this working? It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, so for those of you who know me, I used to have a booktube channel called Mel's Booklet Adventures for years. I think I started it in 2015 and then sort of did it for quite a few years. And then a few years ago, I deleted it. In the veil of depression, as I like to call it, in the dark pit of the darkness of my mind. It's a thing that I tend to do when the darkness comes. I tend to burn bridges left, right, and center. And because, however, how better to isolate yourself than to, burn all the bridges off your little island of darkness, So yeah, anyway, so that's the thing that I tend to do. And then I started this one and I had like aspirations and I never did them because I found I was still quite in a low space and I found it simply too difficult to get going. But I didn't delete this one. And then in December, I thought, you know what, it would be nice to restart a little bit of that booktube thing and maybe talk about sewing and other things. Let's not do the equivalent of buying a new journal to get organized. Let's just use what we already have. And we already have this. So yeah, here we are. And in time-honored tradition, I felt that it would be good to start with a library book haul with a whole stack of books that I ordered while I was waiting for something. I think I was waiting for my husband to finish cook dinner. And so I was on the library catalog. So basically virtually walking through the stacks, my favorite thing to do. I find actual library stacks quite difficult these days with eyesight and things like that. So the virtual ones are much, much better for me. And then I just go on a reserving spree until my library says, listen, Melanie, that is definitely enough now. And that's what I did. Yeah. So he was cooking quite an elaborate dinner that day. So I had some time on my hands. Not all of the books have arrived yet, but there's more books than I thought this morning that I would pick up because I knew there were 3 or 4 waiting, but some more arrived this morning. I wasn't quite prepared for it. And, if you lived here, you would have seen me struggling to walk up the hill with the bag and some books clenched under my arm. So yeah, it was a sight. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into the books. And I'm not sure if people still do library hauls and things like that. I admit I haven't really watched much booktube in recent years, mainly because once you fall out of the habit of something, it's very hard to get started again. I will be honest, it's difficult. I have ADHD and I'm autistic. I find it difficult. Anyway, so here we go. I have seen Gabor Mate everywhere. I know only that a lot of people hate him. A lot of people love him. He might be slightly problematic. I do not know. I tend to find out before I read it. You may tell me in the comments if you know more. But I saw the myth of normal everywhere and the illness, health, and healing in a toxic culture. I just realized that everything is the wrong way around. See, when you don't do things for a while, you forget how it works, I have to flip this later. So the books will be on the other side when you see this. Anyway, never mind. Let's continue. And it really resonated with me. As someone who suffers from chronic illness and is continuously trying to feel a smidgen better, I do also struggle a lot with the toxic culture of healing and all the messages that we get and the onus of improvement, like self-help is yesterday, self-healing is today, right? But I'm really curious, so I will give that a go, but I shall also research him a little bit to have a little bit more of a kind of a better overview of who he actually is, because I do not know. Yeah. I wouldn't have bought his book, but borrowing from the library, I feel like, you know, can risk that. Florence Given, again, someone I don't know, but I like that. It's called Women Living Deliciously. And, you know, it's just like, and I thought it sounded really good. You know, for too long, women have internalized the belief that our bodies are things to be looked at. I never believed that, to be honest with you. But it is still something we get told, right? So I think it is a fair statement. That it's embarrassing to fully express ourselves, that we cannot trust the parts of ourselves that are full of desire. Yeah, so I have no idea what this is about, really. You know, it is very, I mean, it is like, you know, it sort of feels like a middle grade book. We shall see. You know, this might be one that I just flick through and then return, because it's the library. I don't have to. I don't feel any pressure. If I don't read any of them and just return them, still did a good thing. Alice Roberts' new book, Domination. I'm very much looking forward to that. It's the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of Christianity. Now, here's the thing. If you know me, you know that I'm very interested in history. I'm particularly interested in ancient history. And I have a grudge with the Romans. Latin will do that to you, but it goes deeper than that, because I just really resent this ancient culture of the Romans for their imperialistic takeover of Europe and culture, and that we lost so much because of them. That was perhaps different and not necessarily good. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying, you know, I really resent that a lot, and I resent the way they tell the stories about those that they couldn't conquer, or those they conquered and submitted to their imperialistic power. And whilst undoubtedly they did some amazing engineering feats, and you know, it would take centuries for people to recreate that, and even now we're like, wow, how on earth, you know, like, did they do such fine glass, for example? You know, like, we can't quite explain some of their technology and things like that. But then obviously the Roman Empire led straight into the, you know, Christian takeover of Europe, eradicating paganism. And, you know, as a pagan myself, you know, for a long time now, was it like 40-ish years? So, you know, I'm quite interested in that. It's like, it's kind of a sweet spot in my reading of history. I kind of love that. I've always been fascinated by how effective Christianity was in taking over, because that's also a form of imperialism, but it's imperialism where you don't have to take over any states. You just take over the minds. And I think that's something that we are experiencing a lot right now with social media and stuff. So interesting, right? Then this little ditty thing really caught my attention. Ancient Egyptian art and architecture, a very short introduction. We're all here for the very short introduction. Again, ancient history is my jam. Then the national dish, in search of food, history, and meaning of home. I like this. This is a memoir, I believe, or just a non-fiction book. I'm not sure if it's a memoir, but it's a kind of a exploration of food that people eat around the world, and how it comes to be that they're eating that. It sounds exactly like my cup of tea. I do love non-fiction. I do love exploring this, and it has an endorsement from the Queen, Nigella Lawson. And, you know, I couldn't love this more, says Nigella. Well, Nigella, if you love it, I have to read it, right? I mean, it is the rule, I think. My child, who's now at university, if you know me from before, studying physics, thanks for asking. And, you know, like they find it always hilarious how both my husband and I will lust over Nigella when we're watching a cookery program. Because as a family, we love to eat and we also love to cook. And we love to watch cookery programs together, which is very cute. And, you know, and so we are always like, oh my God, just look at her. You know, we love Nigella. Yeah, and she is problematic. Everyone is problematic. Black artists in British art, a history since the 1950s by Eddie Chambers. Now, I tend to not read many books by men, but I thought I'd make an exception. I'm really interested in any kind of art that is non-white. You know, so when I saw this, I thought, yeah, that is definitely interesting. I live in an area where there's a lot of artists living and a lot of artists of color. And so I feel like this is going to be super interesting because I know how hard it is still to make art if you're a person of color. Obviously I do love sewing, and anyone who sews will know that the scraps are never ending, and I'm always looking at things to make with scraps. I make a lot of quilts. I can show you one actually. Oh, just bear with me. Oh God. I'm currently doing a lot of quilts for the local hospital, the neonatal unit. They use them to cover the incubators because it is nicer than the towels and whatever else the hospital provides, and it just feels more colorful. So we've already made 6 or 7, and you know, and so we're working on more, and you know, and so I made this one, and so yeah, a lot of scraps can go in there, but then there's other scraps that can't go in there, and I'm always looking for ideas and inspiration of things to do that you can do with scraps. And yeah, so I shall be perusing that later on. And then this book, oh God, it's everyone can draw. This is not the first time I borrowed this book from the library. My husband is an artist and he teaches art at university, and he teaches concept art. I won't explain right now what that is. I might do in another video. And, you know, and he's always like, everyone can draw. And I admit that I have gotten a lot better at drawing by just doing it regularly. But I'm still struggling with certain things. And so now and then I'm borrowing this book and sort of refresh on things. Am I at this level? Absolutely not. Am I more, hang on, there's a funny picture here of something. No, I can't find it now. There's a funny picture. You know, I'm more at that level. Think 7-year-old in primary school with 2 wrong hands kind of thing. But I'm having fun, and that is sometimes the most important thing. But anyway, that was my haul from the library, and I hope you're having a great day. And I'm gonna just post this, and I'm not even gonna edit or put a title or anything fancy. I'm just gonna post this, and that's it. And then you can watch it or not, and you know, have a nice week. As I said, it's Monday, January 12th. It is thawed here in the UK. The hill that I live on is passable now, which is lovely. And I shall see you, or I won't see you. I don't know yet. We will see. Anyway, bye.